it was instructed that we were supposed to introduce ourselves. I'm Matt Byrne. Right?
It's not coming up. I don't know why.
And Ned kind of took a little bit of my thunder earlier about Lamalfa doing the force speech and having to go to Mar-a-Lago, but he just sent me a text and said, this picture
I'll draw it for you.
is for Mike, and it's really awesome.
Yeah.
It's coming.
Is it?
It's
Is it?
I see, guy. It's a little weird.
Anyway, all right, so he sent me a picture of Trump and the 12 members of Congress that are there for the powwow this weekend, giving thumbs ups for Mike.
What's in the book?
And someday you may get to see that photo. Yeah, if you...
Go back to it.
It came from Doug from his cell phone, and it had a simple message that said for Mike. And so Mike has 2 children. And they both were able to make it today. So, I think we're the last thing, and so to get you to the end, we'll proceed. But it's always been easy to respect and appreciate Dad, and I've always known that others have as well. But it's very special to hear from everybody who's here today, and just to be here today. Some from D.C., from Nevada, Arizona, Colorado, and some all the way from Malin. And one thing that wasn't on the script, but it's special, I think, for all of us, is that there's multiple generations in a lot of these families. There are multiple generations in a lot of our family, and it's very special to have together today. So perhaps after all these nice things have been said about Dad, he won't tell us all that he hasn't really done anything, at least for the rest of the evening. But I doubt it, because it's not his way. And really, it isn't just the things discussed today, the political things, or any one thing that make me proud to be Mike's son, but it's a lifetime of making small decisions to do the right thing for the right reasons that add up to bigger things that obviously matter to people, including the people in this room.
So one of those small things that Dad always did was he supported the 4-H and FFA. He, of course, was there supporting us, right? He helped us pick out our steers and break them, but he was also supporting all of the community youth and those organizations. He was there helping at steer weigh-in at the fair. And when there were those few wild, wayward steers that went running into the carnival, Dad was there chasing them down the sidewalk with his rope. He quite often bumped up the minimum beef prices for the beef youth so that everyone who had worked so hard that year on their animal project could profit. Supporting all of us in agriculture as kids was definitely one of his priorities.
Through the years, I was lucky. I had a unique opportunity to see Mike up close and personal, and a couple of people asked me today, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Well, I'm working for Mike." And then I thought about it. And I thought I've always been working for Mike, as it turned out. But now it's official again. So, but he always worked hard because that's the only way he knows. And one thing to note, Dad's been the boss on the ranch since I was young. But he also worked with his hands every day, including when we shipped calves yesterday morning. And I always admired how he made room for others to learn and grow alongside him. Whether it was having me drive tractor at bale because Bev felt I was too young to rake. or whether it was the two of us feeding together on Sunday mornings after a 2 a.m. drive back from a football or baseball game, so everybody else didn't have to come to work every day. Or whether it was supporting key members of our range team to help them with more than a job. Whether it was skills in a career, helping with citizenship, a better place to live, or whatever they needed. He was the boss, but he also cared about those other things that were really important to the people around him.
So he was busy, but he would add something to his schedule if it wasn't during normal work hours. The girls' basketball team practiced at 5:30 a.m. We got in 2 solid hours of work before school even started. In my varsity years, Coach had this group of big, strong, tough adversaries come in and practice with us a couple times a week. Our dads. And sure, there were some younger dads who you might expect to be there in their tennis shoes and shorts. And some of those dads even wore shorts sometimes. My dad I'd never seen in shorts, and we're all glad about that. But he showed up in his sweatpants and the whitest tennis shoes you've ever seen to support me on the basketball court. And he was tough. I distinctly remember being boxed out of that key by my dad all the time.
I also had a very unique opportunity to see him working in his political work. When I was living in Washington, D.C., when I was living in Sacramento with the Cattlemen's Association, off the ranch jobs, where I was still working for Mike, that he supported me in getting and in doing. And sometimes he let me tag along to his meetings, like when they interviewed Jeff Eisenberg for the PLC job. Should he really have been hired? I don't know. Still ask. But I got to be there to watch him receive the National Conservation Award. I got to watch him receive the Beef Trailblazer Award. And I got to watch him receive the California Livestock Man of the Year Award. I actually got paid to be there. I also got a front row seat to watch him be on a first name basis with multiple cabinet secretaries, Gail Norton and Veneman, during the Bush administration, and watch my dad, as a peer, sit and talk about water and grazing with them. And of course, I got to watch him charm dozens of congressional staffers and a few of my more feeble-minded friends and coworkers. One of the things, and it came up earlier, that I thought was impressive, is he was always willing to talk to anyone, even the lowly admin in office, even in the office of a Southern California vegetarian, in hopes that he could find any common ground on an issue that would help this basin, and if nothing else, at least maybe convince someone to try a burger. And then every once in a while, when he wasn't too busy, I'd get him to tag along with me and some of my 20-something friends to whatever we were doing. And then, inevitably, he'd leave town, and they'd ask me, "Why aren't you as much fun as your dad?" And for some things, there is no answer, and there is no change.
Canada. The same.
She's right. And even though my path is different than his, he's always encouraged me and supported me through school and after to today, working together on the ranch. I've always shared respect mutually, and he's been willing to let me try, and he's been gracious when I foul things up. And finally, like the rest of you, I do really try to get the jokes. He once surprised me, and it pleased me, when he told me that I get it. But in true Mike fashion, he followed it up by saying, every once in a while. He's always serious when he's working, but it's always with a joke and a smile, and that's a good thing. Love you, Dev, like so many of those who are here today.
No. I'm not quite done. So I don't have some of the same experiences as Matt. Dad did not hang around with my friends much. In fact, the first time he met one of my good friends in our apartment in San Francisco, she observed my family interacting for a while. And then she looked at Dad, and she looked at me, and she looked at Dad, and she said to me, "Oh, now I get you." But what I can say is that Dad treated me pretty similarly to Matt. Not exactly the same, and that's probably okay. But he certainly didn't coddle me. I was expected to back that trailer up, even if there were 10 people watching. I was expected to drive that stick, even if third gear was sticky. I was told to drive right through that mucky puddle, with the only instructions being, well, don't get stuck. He even had me drive him into town the very first day I got my permit. And since he had a chauffeur, he took a nap. It's possible not all of my parents were happy about that. What I'm saying is he had really high expectations, and there weren't always a lot of instructions accompanying those expectations. But what I've realized as I've gotten older is that that teaching style could have backfired, but instead instilled in me a very strong sense of my own ability. And of course, there always was that support that if I did get stuck, he'd be there to pull me out of the mud. A decade later, it was the winter Zach had decided to ask for Dad's blessing before he proposed. Zach was sitting in the feed truck with Dad. He'd probably opened quite a few gates in quite a bit of thick mud. And when he asked, Dad didn't say yes or no. Dad said, "Well, I trust Brianna. And if she chooses you, then I know she's making the right choice." And that respect of how he and Mom had raised me, that respect for the decision I was bound to make with or without his blessing, that respect for who I'd become was really the biggest compliment he ever could get. So thank you, Dad. You want to say thanks? Do you want to say something?
Well, I want to thank you all for coming. I think that some of these words are a little bit overstated, but I'm not going to ignore them. Anyway, I have great kids, I have a great family, I have a great wife, and I'm really proud to see all of you here and hope we can do this again.